that are working hard to help us be heard and understood. They'll be describing Project Euphonia. Dr. Bob McDonald is Technical Program Manager at Google, and I've read a little bit about some of the work he's doing, and it looks like he's applying artificial intelligence to a lot of different medical conditions, many which could be very exciting. Dr. Lori Ramig is a research professor at the University of Colorado Boulder, and she's the Chief Scientific Officer at LSVT Global. And as I learned a little bit more about her, she has the awesome reputation of having been the major or one of the originating founders of LSVT and has done an enormous amount of work with voice and speaking issues for patients with Parkinson's. And she received the WPC Award for Distinguished Contribution to the Parkinson's Community in Kyoto last year. I expect that you'll end up having some questions or comments, and as you've already been told, if you can put them in the chat, I will be kind of watching this over here, and we'll try and integrate any of your questions, and we will wait until the presentations are over until we take the questions. So please welcome Lori Ramig, and we're on our way.
Thank you. Kathleen, can you pull up my slides, please?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. This is just a fabulous get-together to talk about a very, very exciting project. My role in this will be simply to say a lot of thank yous, and then we'll turn it over to Bob from Google, who will explain to you the details of the project. So the first thank you from me is to Google for having this wonderful project Euphonia to empower speech and voice in many neurological disorders, including Parkinson's disease. And also a big thanks to Bob McDonald, who has been our close partner in this effort. LSVT Global was very excited when Google invited us to participate, and we're very honored. Next slide, please. Great. We all know speech and voice disorders are a problem in Parkinson's disease. Nearly 90% of individuals with Parkinson's have speech or voice disorders. Over our 25 years of funding from the National Institutes of Health to LSVT researchers, we have studied speech and voice disorders in Parkinson's and their treatment. We understand that these disorders can really limit quality of life, including challenges using speech recognition systems such as Siri, Alexa, speech to text, etc. This can be a big challenge. And so we are now so happy to be working with Google to bring this wonderful project Euphonia into the Parkinson community. The team we've worked with at LSVT has developed recruiting, screening, training, and support protocols so that these patients can enter this important project. Next slide, please. So as we all know, it takes a village. The second big thanks goes to the Parkinson's disease community. Eli and the World Parkinson Coalition, our good friend Carol Walton of the Parkinson Alliance, Joanna Teeters and David Kemp from Cure PSP, who have brought PSP, MSA, and CBD patients into this recruiting, the PMD Alliance, the Davis Phinney Foundation, and Dr. Michael Oken of the University of Florida. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Without the support of the Parkinson community, we couldn't make this project happen. Next slide, please. And then heartiest gratefulness to Team LSVT Global. This is a team of speech clinicians well-trained in working with Parkinson's disease. Heather Hodges, Jennifer Spielman, Ona Reed, Emily Nauman, and Carly Bergley. They have managed the screening, training, both in terms of using the software of Google, but also training on technology in general, and supporting these patients through their creation of their data within the Google system. We also thank LSVT support staff, Willa Gorman and Sabrina Devitt. Next slide. So now I'm going to turn the show over to Bob McDonald, and he will walk you through Project Euphonia. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Lori. And hi, everyone. As Lori mentioned, my name is Bob McDonald, and I'm a technical program manager here at Google. And my areas of focus have been looking for ways that we can solve really important problems and problems that deeply affect quality of life or other kind of everyday applications using this emerging set of tools that fall under this big umbrella called artificial intelligence. I'm really excited about the partnership with LSVT and having been invited. It's quite an honor to share this with the WPC community. So I'll step through an overview of what Euphonia is, how we got it started, what our ambitions are, and kind of a call to action for people to join the effort to push this research forward. This introductory slide, I've got my name there, and Julie, who is our product manager, she's really the spearhead for defining what an ultimate product should be, how it should work, who it should work for. And she couldn't join us today, but she's, she'll be a key point of contact for a lot of things that we do with teams going forward. In the background is a picture of Steve Sailing. Steve has been living with ALS for a number of years now, and sadly, the disease has progressed so far to where he's really lost the ability to speak at all. So we have another project that we're working on with people like Steve, who are limited to just making very modest like vowel sounds to try to help them communicate or take actions. But really it was inspired, Project Euphonia was inspired by working with people like Steve and others in the ALS community originally around things that we might be able to do using speech data. And as we were working on that, things like early detection or an objective measure of disease progression, we realized that this speech technology that we have at Google for recognizing everyday speakers' voices ought to work better for people with atypical speech, and really could have a major impact in a positive way on the quality of life for people who are so heavily burdened by conditions like ALS or Parkinson's for that matter. So we really pivoted our program to focus most of our energy on applying this technology to help adapt the speech recognizers to work better for people with a variety of conditions. And so as we dug in, it became clear that ALS, though it was our starting point and remains an important focus for us, was really just the tip of the iceberg. There's a range of conditions that can affect people's voice in a way that makes it difficult for technology to understand or for other humans. And right near the top of that list is Parkinson's. So we're really excited about ramping up activity with this very community to help solve the problem to the best that the technology allows. And all of this is happening in an environment where more and more technologies, devices, features, and applications are depending on voice input to do something useful, which is really handy for many people, maybe even most people. But there are huge groups of people for whom these technology advances just fall flat, and that gap threatens to get wider if we don't take some kind of proactive measures to improve the technology with really concerted efforts to close that gap. And that's really what we're all about at Project Euphonia. We currently describe Euphonia as a research project because we don't yet know exactly what the timeline is for when will be able to make our systems good enough that they're useful for a large number of people with strongly affected speech. But we're quite confident that it's possible. And we're also confident that the more people we hear from, the more different voices, the faster things will go. So our overall goal is, again, to use artificial intelligence to help people who have speech difficulty communicate and ideally gain more independence and overall kind of improve quality of life to the extent that that speech recognition can play a role. One of the other early kind of participants in our team is pictured here. The gentleman on this slide is Dimitri. He's a researcher, but he also happens to be deaf. And he lost his hearing when he was quite young, living in Russia. And then he moved west and he learned to speak English after suffering most hearing loss. So his speech sounds quite different, so much so that none of the voice-activated technologies are very satisfying for him. And what we learned from working closely with Dimitri over the last 2 years was, with enough examples of his voice, we can retrain these systems to do a remarkably accurate job of understanding his voice, just as he naturally speaks. And so that really was kind of a critical proof of concept. It also showed us that we, at that stage, a year or two ago, we needed thousands and thousands of samples to make enough progress for an individual like Dimitri. But we're getting better all the time. And that's really thanks to partnerships with groups that help spread the word across different population segments that we're looking for more voices. The more people we hear from, the less we actually need from any one person. I'm going to just play a quick video here from last year. Around this time last year, the Canadian Down Syndrome Society had approached us, and we were really interested in working with them because we wanted to hear more voices from this community. And this is kind of how that showed up in their outreach campaign.
Playing your jogging playlist. It will take you 7 minutes to get there by public transportation. Here's a summary from baseball.
My name is Master McNeil. I live in Toastbrook, Ontario. I went to Peterborough at Fleming College.
Hey Google, set thermostat to 78 degrees.
My apologies, I don't understand.
My daughter, she has a smaller mouth, she has a longer tongue. Picture talking with the marshmallow in your mouth.
Technologies that are activated by voice commands are becoming a way of life.
Scheduling and reminders, practicing phrases, speaking to friends.
For people where that doesn't work, that must feel very sort of disempowering, or like they're being sort of left behind.
I see him being able to not need to rely on others as much.
Hey Google, what is the weather in California?
We're all very excited to partner with the Canadian Down Syndrome Society. The goal is to make speech recognition work better for people who have different types of speech.
I'm teaching Google.
I'm TT Google.
I'm TT Google.
Thank you for coming to Google.
Thank you.
Out of the box, Google Speech Recognizer would not recognize every third word for a person with Down syndrome, and that makes the technology not very usable.
What we really need is for people with Down syndrome to volunteer, go on the website and record phrases and donate their voice.
I owe you a yo-yo today. Strawberry jam is sweet.
The more voices we have, the better the technology will get.
Hey Google, turn off the lights.
This is basically the fundamental frequency, and we kind of look at how these frequencies move, and that's corresponds to the words that you're saying.
When I started doing the project, first thing came to my mind is that it's really helping a lot of people be more independent.
I think voice technology is so important to give a voice to the voiceless. I think that's fantastic that we live in a world where that's even possible.
Hey, Google, thank you.
You're welcome.
So that touched on a few of the critical elements for Project Euphonia and really what inspires us to do this work. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip through a few more of these slides. But our end goal for this research really is to integrate the results of our research into products that are useful for people. So that could be the standard Google Assistant or other voice-activated electronic assistants, or a system where a transcription of what someone is saying can be presented on a screen or on a video call or on a standard call. And our goal really, as I mentioned, in the immediate term, is to expose our system to as many different speakers as possible. When we did that outreach campaign with the Canadian Down Syndrome Society, we were just blown away by the response. We got hundreds of people who let us know they were interested in sharing their voice. And that's allowed us to make so much progress on voice patterns from that type of condition. But that's really just a starting point, and we really need to hear more voices from other groups, like in the Parkinson's community. So what was shown in a little segment of that video was Matthew was recording voices, samples of his voice saying specific phrases. We use a tool called Chit Chat that's shown here on this slide. Anyone with a device that has a web browser can use it. I should provide a caveat that it's a little cumbersome. We've invested most of our energy in the research for building these models, and the tool that we have for recording the voice for many people can be quite complicated. And this is why we're so thrilled with the partnership that we've had with LSVT Global. They've helped us get kind of a first wave of individuals living with Parkinson's disease through the process. And it really has required, with many of these individuals, kind of a quite deep dive to make sure that the complexities of this recording tool don't block or don't become too frustrating. Once they get going and once those voice samples are shared, then our research team can take over and can really drive progress. But anyway, I just mentioned that because it's been really critical to have their expertise, and also for us to understand at the end of the day, what are the ways that voice technology can help people in this community. So here's an example of a list of phrases. The tool will basically give you a handful of these phrases on the screen. And I see someone says they have Parkinson's disease and stroke. And so that, likely would be a really sort of a very interesting combination for us to hear, because we might not have heard voices similar enough to make good progress. In any case, we have people run through several hundred phrases, and then we do some quality control, make sure that there was no technical issue, like a microphone not working or too much background noise. And then we go from there. Last year, we heard from 1,000, roughly 1,000, a little bit more, individuals whose speech has been affected by one condition or another, strongly enough that people sometimes or often have a hard time understanding them. or technology isn't working for them when they're trying to use their voice. And so that's really our ambition here is to kind of hear from hundreds more people from the Parkinson's community who feel that a better voice recognizer could really help them, or that their voice should be factored into this overall effort. And ultimately, on the far side of this, we want to improve all kinds of devices so that people in the Parkinson's community can benefit from the same advances that are being kind of rapidly driven for people whose voices are considered typical. So the first step that anyone can take is to just get in touch with us or with LSVT. And the WPC folks have some brochures and links that will bring you to an interest form, and that will get the process started. So we're really enthusiastic about hearing more from you. You can also go to the Project Euphonia website. The short link is g.co/Euphonia, and you can learn more about the program that way. So anyway, that's those are kind of the overview slides I wanted to share, and very eager to field questions.
Okay, Bob, this is Linda speaking. I'm taking a look at the chat and I have a couple of questions. First of all, one person saying, I would love to help. I have a second person, same person, saying, I have PD and a stroke. So I think you've got one candidate right here that we'll be able to put you in touch with. Claudia asks, would people with PD who are non-native English speakers be able to participate?
That's a great question. So the short answer is yes. What these people will find is that the current phase of the project, we're giving people English phrases, but even if they're a non-native English speaker, that's okay. Accents, are factored in. With respect to adapting speech recognizers that are trained in other languages, that's on the roadmap, but not kind of not immediately actionable for us. So we do want to roll this out. We want to really figure out the system in one language so that we can most efficiently roll it out across multiple languages.
Lauren asks, are you looking for various accents as well? Kind of tied into the previous English non-speaking.
Yeah. So absolutely. So we have we're getting growing representation from the UK, from people maybe who grew up in India and learned English, but they speak with a noticeable accent. So accents are definitely welcome.
Next question from John. Are you doing any research on integrating the cameras in many of the Google devices and smartphones alongside the microphone to provide additional data?
That's a very good question, because humans, when we're speaking, we're definitely benefiting by when we have the chance to also see video or use our eyes to see someone live. Our current system is actually just using the audio, but I showed an example at the very beginning. There was a picture of Steve sailing, and the project we're working on with him and people whose voices really have degenerated to the point where their only capacity is some short bursts of sound, to use a camera input. And I can definitely see over time that all of these speech recognition systems will benefit by kind of merging in video when that's available.
Claudia asks, approximately how long would it take for a participant to go through the whole questionnaire? Now, I'm not sure if that's a questionnaire, and then I had a question of how long to go through all of those.
Yeah,
So maybe it's too.
yeah, two good questions. On specifically the questionnaire, this first step, it's, I want to say 10 or 12 items to fill out. So it should just be a few minutes. For example, we ask the age because right now our internal kind of privacy folks really want us only to be collecting data from people who are 18 years or older. So some information like that. So that's just a few minutes. Then with respect to the voice recordings, it does vary from person to person. The first batch of phrases is about 300 phrases long, and some people can get through that in 20 minutes. For other people, it might take a bit longer. Sort of the full training set, the full extended list of phrases, we estimate is somewhere between 4 and 7 hours. But no one's under any obligation to finish those. And we really encourage people to do those at their own pace, and just as many as they feel comfortable doing.
Okay, another question is, are you working on understanding speech of patients or people with Parkinson's with good articulation, but poor vocal intensity, especially in noise? So I guess the difference between being able to move your lips and getting the voice, the sound to come out.
That's a very good question also. So our initial focus has been mostly on kind of the former and not the latter, not on the loudness and overcoming background noise. But as we move into 2021, I can see that becoming more important. So we do need to adapt our systems, to understand people who have an intensity issue. So please reach out to us because we want to hear from, we really want to hear from people, and then layer in those conditions as we make progress in our basic research.
Okay, I've got some other ones I'm kind of sifting through here. One of them asks, are any of these tools available for developers, I presume in companies other than Google, as a product, or at least for researchers? Are you holding on to this tightly right now?
Right. So right now, again, from kind of a privacy perspective, that we really only provide access even to a select number of people within Google. But over time, our ambition is to make these tools more widely available. One of the tools that is available to developers, is an API for our kind of cloud speech recognizer. And we do have ambitions that over time we'd be able to make modifications to that, to the speech recognizer that other developers have access to, that tracks the same progress on understanding people with atypical speech, so that you could get the exact same benefit. There are some technical issues with that we need to figure out, because there are really sort of two different branches that we're pursuing. One branch is to make our have sort of a one-size-fits-all speech recognizer, where we have just such an immense pool of data and examples from a wide enough spectrum of speech patterns that the model has just heard it all and is sort of like universally good. But that's a long road. And in the meantime, we've seen really impressive progress when for an individual, we have enough samples that we can make a personalized model for them. And we suspect that that's going to be what we're able to do first for most people. And that's the thing that's kind of hard to fold into this developer, into the system that developers have access to. But anyway, our goal is not to hold on to this. It's really to empower, a lot of other people to make better products for this community.
Another question, what type of device or technology do I need to contribute voice samples?
So I showed a picture of this Chit Chat tool, and the way that works is any device that has a web browser, whether it's Google Chrome or Apple Safari or another modern web browser. That's how you get access and begin the process of submitting the recordings. So obviously the device needs a microphone, but basically a phone, tablet, laptop, or desktop computer with a relatively up-to-date browser. That's all that's needed.
Okay, now this is kind of an interesting one, and I kind of smiled when I first saw it, but it does make some sense. Do your samples include people with dentures or other dental issues?
Ooh, very good question. We don't know in all candor. One thing that we really do pay attention to is we don't want to collect any medical data from people. We really it's valuable to know sort of what community they come from, but we're kind of blind to whether someone's talking through a ventilator or has dentures or other devices that might be affecting their speech pattern. So we want to hear it all, and I suspect that if we have heard from some people, it's not enough. So please let us hear how that affects the way that you sound.
And I think you may have mentioned this, or Lori may have, and that is that it doesn't have to just be patients or people with Parkinson's. It can be ALS or stroke, traumatic brain injury, deafness, cerebral palsy, MS. So reach out to your friends and neighbors with other issues that also affect voice. So
exactly.
Post-DBS also. Yeah.
Pardon me? I'm sorry.
Post-DBS.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question. If I contribute voice samples, will I get an early product or a prototype?
Right. So, anyone who contributes voice samples, if they're interested in getting the data, their voice samples back at any time, that's 100% part of the program. You can just let us know, send us an email, and we'll basically package up all the voice data that you've provided, and then you can have that for whatever use might be interesting. In terms of access to an early product, that's not yet baked into the program. We have had a very small number of individuals that we've been doing some early testing, that's probably for them more of a chore than it is kind of a benefit. They've told us very positive things that they feel it's worth their time, and we do provide people with gift cards for the time that they put in. That basically kind of a cash equivalent gift card, but we don't have that expanded so that everyone who shares voice samples can participate. It would be way too frustrating for so many people, and B, we want to make something that's a more satisfying experience before subjecting too many people to it.
Diane asks, could this be used to create subtitles for telephone use?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, that's a super good question, Diane. Let me just show you. So I mentioned we do have a handful of individuals that we're testing these engineering prototypes with. Let's see if it works for me to play this video. Oops. think I clicked on the wrong thing here.
Yeah, I had a friend calling day today was a hospital day, which meant I had to get up at 6 to be in hospital by 9.
Okay, so this is one of the people that was early on working with us in the program. She has ALS. And what that screen is showing is a little video inset with her and a speech language pathologist, Richard Cave, who's been just an incredibly helpful ally working with our team. And she's testing out a system that we've kind of pasted together, where our speech recognizer has been trained based on a large number of samples she provided, and we're projecting the transcript, the captions, onto a screen that someone on the other side of a video call can see. So, so that was exactly the right question. That really is one of the ways that we hope to make this useful for people.
John, pardon me. John asks to provide examples of how this product could be used day to day. So that telephone would be one. Can you give a few other ideas?
Yeah, another would be for like a home assistant device for turning on lights or adjusting the temperature, or asking questions about the weather or appointments, where being able to use your voice makes it much more convenient. And then I'd say a final one is for dictation. If for people where typing is a challenge, if voice input can be made more efficient and more accurate, then emails or text messages or documents or essays or other things that you would want to write. So those are some of the other examples.
Betty asks, or she kind of has a statement. She said that speech departments and speech language therapists have many speech voice samples. Can they be used with permission, of course, even though the Chit Chat protocol would not be used? Or have you considered contacting universities and speech language departments in hospitals, et cetera, to receive the information directly?
Right. That's a super good question. And in fact, when Lori and I met, Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we met at ASHA last year. Is that right?
We did.
Yeah. And the first direction that we started investigating was indeed related to this, where there are archives of speech samples. And over time, I think those are going to be really valuable to contribute. But what we found through the course of that is kind of two factors steered us towards applying most of our energy into fresh recordings. And one of the factors is that when we have examples of a wide range of people saying exactly the same thing, we find that's more efficient for training the system than when we have samples of, kind of pockets of samples of people saying different things. So in terms of the basic technology, that was one of the factors. Also, it turned out to be pretty administratively complicated, not impossible, just taking a lot of energy to try to figure out how to get those permissions. And Google has become quite sensitized to making sure that we really properly manage any data that we get access to avoid any risk that someone is surprised that their data has been kind of folded into a research project like this. So that eventually will be worth doing, but in the interest of getting the kind of the most rapid boost to the research, we put more of our energy into the Chit Chat approach.
I think HIPAA creates a lot of barriers right there that you'd have to jump through those hoops that it's too painful to do.
Yeah.
Another question is, does the information all have to be provided in one setting? So if someone is reading the sentences for you, can they stop and come back and finish it another time?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, to a certain degree, it's better for us to hear from the same person in multiple sessions, because people's voices can change through the course of a day. Sometimes later in the day or after certain activities, maybe it's harder to enunciate or harder to have the right volume. Or there might be different background noise, a little different room environment. And that kind of diversity really helps. So we do, encourage, if people can blast through a whole bunch of phrases in one session, that's totally fine. But if it's broken into many sessions, that, we can take advantage of that diversity.
Okay. All right. Well, the last question I'm hesitant to ask because this has got political ramifications probably, but it says, have you reached out to Amazon and Apple? It seems like this would be a good cross-industry collaboration. That's like University of California going to USC or Stanford and saying, let's do the same project. Although it does happen sometimes. So, yeah.
Well, so, in all candor, our motivation here really is based on trying to help as many people as possible. I think there are representatives at Amazon, Apple, tech companies like that, who really have a similar mindset. And we do envision finding ways to partner, or join forces in one way or another. Because it really shouldn't be the case that each company is inventing its own wheel. And so where things can be done in sort of a harmonious way, we do expect that over time that'll happen. This isn't something where we want to be able to say, hey, Google is the only one that can do this. We really want, we want to kind of convey the benefits to, as wide a population as possible.
You did a good job with that. Eli asks, have you found any surprises or specific challenges from the Parkinson's community that you weren't expecting or that were very different from other diseases that you've been dealing with?
Right. Super good question. I'd say there are two things, and this really circles back to the how valuable it's been, how important the partnership with LSVT Global has been. So one is that there are a lot of people in the Parkinson's community who, even if their voice or speech have been affected, can sort of rise to the occasion. And so early on, we got a lot of speech samples, of early samples from individuals where, boy, if they talk like that all the time, we couldn't tell they had any sort of speech impairment. And our standard speech recognizer was really good. It was very accurate at understanding that mode of speech that they were able to lock into. So Lori and her team kind of realized that, hey, these people are performing. And and they needed to figure out how to sort of coach people to, not to try to speak in an unintelligible way, but speak in a sustainable way. So that was kind of one, is there's a, compared to, say, a condition like cerebral palsy, where there's a much higher fraction of people who have quite severe speech impairments. And then number two is, it really exposed the complexity of our process. For people, maybe where there's also a cognitive issue going on, it can be quite frustrating to try to ride solo through our recording system compared to other groups that we've seen that the navigating through the user interface, is more challenging for a lot of people in this community. And it just sort of exposes the deficiencies in that aspect of the program. But with a helper of one kind or another, more often than not, people can make it through.
That as you were speaking this morning, I was thinking what you're really striving to do is give us independence. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm a triple amputee. And so I've spent the last 40 years trying to be very independent, and voice recognition or voice issues is the same for a lot of people. If you can't make yourself known, it's as bad as if you can't get in the car and drive someplace. So independence becomes one of our huge goals, no matter what kind of a disability we're working with. Betty asks, do you have a form that explains the protocols or the contacts that we may email blast to people with Parkinson's? So you may have an answer, and Eli probably is.
Yeah, I would definitely circle back to Eli. Both Lori and I have kind of given her some materials, but Eli, if you want to maybe kind of speak to how people could reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll post something both on the website, and we'll email everyone who's registered for this talk. So you can go straight to that page and download that document and read it and have all the links that you need. So we'll follow up afterward with that information. If not today, then sometime tomorrow.
That's great. Another point to be made is on that flyer, when patients log in to register, they will meet a screener, one of the mentors, and that mentor will talk to them about what the program entails also. So they'll hear on the spot and can ask questions.
Okay, I've kind of sifted through everything. If there's anyone that has a burning question, or you think that I have missed your question, feel free to type it in again. I'm not trying to play favorites, but I may have rolled past something that I should have paid more attention to. So I don't see any more. So how are we doing for time, Eli?
I think we're good. We don't have to go to the very minute, but certainly a couple of thank yous. I see Dan Novak, who's a very active member in the community, the Parkinson's community here in the US, saying thank you for the focus. I actually, while you were talking, Bob, I pulled up a comment on my LinkedIn page from a friend of mine, and may even be on this call today, although I didn't see his name pop up, based in the UK, named Matt Eagles. He's had Parkinson's for decades. He was diagnosed when he was a child. And he's a very active Parkinson's advocate in inclusion and making sure people with Parkinson's have access. When I posted about this, he did write, and I think he really hit it on the head. He said, when you already struggle to move, if you also lose your means of communication, it's devastating. And he said, just the thought of it is like terrifying. Just the thought of not being able to move and then losing your voice. And he said, this is such a vital webinar. Thanks for offering it. So I think that really, I wanted to just pull that up because I remembered when he posted that. I think that was a really salient point, and why I think people are so interested in this. I think we're done with our questions. I wanna say thank you to Linda and Lori and Bob. Is there anything you'd like to just comment on, a takeaway or final comment before we close out here?
I want to thank you, Eli, for hosting this. This was wonderful. Thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity. Linda and Bob were great. Bob, you could be a speech clinician with all that knowledge you have about speech. And the final thing I wanted to say, at LSVT Global, we focus on rehabilitation in the Parkinson community, both physical therapy, occupational therapy, and of course, speech therapy. So it's important to work on your speech and voice through speech therapy to improve quality of life and maintain independence. Thank you.
Great, and I'm really quite honored to have participated and been invited and get to know more people in this community. It's, to me, one of the things that's super rewarding is that artificial intelligence actually, in a non-obvious way, really requires this close collaboration between the community and a wide range of individuals and the researchers. It's only by getting a diverse enough set of examples that we can solve the problem. So this is exactly the kind of dialogue and the kind of forum and the kind of community that needs to be integrated from the very beginning phases of this journey towards what we expect to be an exciting set of solutions coming out later on.
I know we had a little bit of trouble figuring out how to give you the information. So this is kind of the look of the information flyer that you may look for on the WPC website or in the email that you signed up with today. So it says at the top, are you frustrated when you talk to technology? This is my printing off my email. So go back to your computers and see if you can find this as far as access information.
Thanks, Linda.
And we'll send that out to everyone. Thank you so much, Linda. And my one last hope is that I really hope that Lori and Bob, I hope you're incredibly successful with this work and all your teams and all your effort. We would love to see an abstract submitted about Project Euphonia to the 6th World Parkinson Congress, which is taking place in Barcelona in June of 2022. We hope, pending COVID outcomes, but the reality is if we're together, Bob, we'd love to see you in Barcelona presenting, you and your colleagues presenting about this. I'm absolutely sure that the community would be thrilled to see what you're doing and hear the outcomes. So that's
Great.
my last request.
Wonderful idea.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone from all over the world for joining us at this time. I think Andy was even on from New Zealand. I think I saw his name pop up. We really had a nice coverage from the global community. It was a pleasure to see all of you. Thanks again to our fabulous presenters and our moderator. And we'll hopefully have another talk similar to this in a few months on a new innovative, wonderful project by another partner in the coalition. And we'll make sure you know about that as well. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening or day.
Bye.
Thank you.